All right, welcome back. You've been exploring the world of startups with Eric Ries, the Lean Startup, and we're here to help you navigate that second part, steer,
Yeah.
where things really start to get moving.
Yeah, that's right. It's where you take those foundational ideas and you start putting them into practice.
Yeah,
It's not just brainstorming anymore. You're actually behind the wheel making decisions in this world of uncertainty.
it's like you've got this incredible vehicle, right? The potential to go anywhere, but now you need to know how to handle the steering wheel,
Exactly.
and especially when the road ahead is pretty foggy, right?
Yeah.
Steer is all about using data as your compass
Mm.
to test those assumptions, to decide whether to pivot or persevere, and ultimately guide your business towards success.
And I think you've got some really compelling examples to learn from in this section,
Yeah.
like Airbnb's journey from testing their idea with air mattresses to becoming a hospitality giant,
Right.
or Twitter's you know dramatic shift from a podcasting platform to the microblogging phenomenon we know today. So there's some really interesting case studies to dive into.
So let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Rees, he starts Sear with his big idea. Startups are experiments.
Right.
It's not about just rigidly following this predetermined plan,
Right.
but about testing assumptions,
Yeah.
assumptions.
Yeah.
Like what's the real danger of just skipping that testing phase?
Yeah. I think imagine pouring your heart and soul and time and money into building something based on an assumption that turns out to be completely wrong.
Yeah.
That's the risk you take when you don't test your assumptions early on. It's like building a house on a foundation of sand. It might look good at first, but it's not going to stand the test of time.
And that's where the story of Airbnb really hits home, right?
Yeah.
They had this seemingly simple assumption: people would be willing to rent rooms from complete strangers.
Right. And it sounds obvious now, but back then it was a huge unknown.
It was a huge unknown. And
Yeah.
what's brilliant is that they didn't spend years building this complex platform, only to find out later that their core assumption was flawed.
Totally.
Instead, they took this really lean approach. They started small by renting out air mattresses in their own apartment during a conference.
I mean, it's remarkable to think about that, right?
Yeah.
A few air mattresses
Yeah.
provided the data they needed to validate their idea and move forward with confidence.
So it's more than just the air mattresses themselves.
Hmm.
It's the insights they gained, right?
Yeah.
What did those insights actually reveal?
Well, their experiment revealed a few crucial things, I think.
Yeah.
First, it proved that there was a real demand for affordable short-term accommodations,
Right.
especially during events like conferences.
Makes sense.
Second, it showed them that people were willing to trust strangers enough to stay in their homes.
Yeah.
Especially if the hosts were welcoming and provided a good experience. And then finally, it gave them valuable feedback on pricing, logistics, the overall user experience, all of which they used to shape their platform as it evolved.
It's a fantastic example of how a small experiment can yield massive insights
Right.
that drive future decisions. And it leads us to another crucial topic that can make or break a startup: knowing when to pivot or persevere.
Yeah.
This feels like one of the toughest calls for any founder.
It definitely is. You're constantly questioning, do we stick with our original vision and make adjustments, or do we fundamentally change direction?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught up in gut feelings.
Right. But Rees makes it very clear these decisions shouldn't be based on your intuition, but on data.
Right.
And to make those data-driven decisions,
Mhm.
you need to be looking at what he calls actionable metrics. So what exactly makes a metric actionable?
Well, I think actionable metrics, they give you real tangible insights into the health of your business. They tell you if you're, acquiring customers, if those customers are finding value in your product or service, and ultimately if you're moving towards profitability. It's about focusing on the numbers that truly matter and that you can actually do something about.
So it's not just about vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Like website traffic.
Yeah.
That might sound impressive, but don't tell the whole story.
Totally. Yeah. If those visitors aren't converting into paying customers or engaging with your product in a meaningful way, then those numbers are essentially meaningless.
Right. And it's crucial to distinguish between between pivot and persevere.
Yeah.
Because they represent very different courses of action, right? Yeah. A pivot isn't just a tweak. It's a fundamental shift in your product, your business model, or even your target market.
Right.
Persevering, on the other hand, means staying the course. Staying the course with your core offering.
Right.
While making smaller adjustments along the way.
Yeah.
And to really understand the difference, I think we can look at the contrasting examples of Twitter and Dropbox.
Great examples. Yeah.
Two companies that faced critical decisions early on.
Absolutely. So Twitter, they started as audio, a platform for creating and sharing podcasts. However, they quickly realized that they were facing an uphill battle against a giant, Apple iTunes.
Oh yeah.
So faced with this feast competition, they knew they had to make a drastic change,
Yeah.
a true pivot. And that's how they evolved into the microblogging powerhouse we know today, completely reinventing themselves to capitalize on a different opportunity.
A complete 180.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, we have Dropbox.
Right.
Their launch strategy was incredibly simple. They created a short, engaging video.
Mm-hmm.
Just explaining their file sharing service.
Right.
And the response was overwhelmingly positive, far exceeding their expectations.
So that overwhelming positive feedback, gave them the confidence to persevere. They saw the potential in their core offering, and instead of making a drastic change, they focused on refining and improving their existing product.
Yeah.
And eventually they became the go-to solution for file sharing and collaboration.
Right.
Proving that perseverance, when backed by data and user feedback, can be the right path.
Absolutely. Those stories perfectly highlight how data can inform those crucial decisions.
Yeah.
But how do you actually measure progress? Especially when your product is constantly evolving. That's where Ries introduces the concept of innovation accounting, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Innovation accounting is a way to track your progress, even as your product undergoes changes. So you start by establishing a baseline for key metrics that are relevant to your business goals.
Yeah.
And then as you make small changes to your product or your marketing strategy, you measure their impact on those key metrics.
So it's all about constantly experimenting, analyzing, and seeing what moves the needle.
Right. But it's more than just tracking numbers.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what those numbers actually mean.
Right.
So innovation accounting isn't about, getting lost in the sea of data.
Mm-hmm.
It's about using that data to make informed decisions about whether to pivot or persevere.
Yeah.
You're not just guessing. You're using real evidence to steer your startup in the right direction.
It's like having a feedback loop.
Right.
Built right into your business.
Right.
And another example that really highlights the importance of focusing on the right metrics is Zappos.
Oh yeah, great example.
Their founder, Nick Swinmurn, he understood that website traffic alone wasn't enough.
Right.
His key metric, the one he truly cared about, was completed purchases.
That's incredibly insightful. It doesn't matter how many people visit your website if they don't actually buy anything.
Right.
And so by focusing on completed purchases as their actionable metric, Zappos was able to make informed decisions that drove real growth and ultimately led to their remarkable success.
And this focus on the right metrics brings us back to the build, measure, learn loop.
Right.
The concept we touched upon earlier.
Yeah.
It's not just about building a product and hoping for the best.
Right.
It's about constantly testing, iterating, improving based on real data.
Totally.
Can you remind us how this loop works?
Sure. Yeah. So the loop starts with build, where you create a minimum viable product, an MVP.
Right.
And this MVP is essentially a prototype designed to test your riskiest assumption as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
Think of it as a way to get feedback from real users without investing a ton of time and resources into building a perfect finished product.
So it's about getting your idea out there in a form
Yeah.
that allows you to gather that valuable data without overspending or overthinking it.
Exactly, yeah, and then comes measure, where you collect data on how users are interacting with your MVP. So, are they using it as you intended? Are they finding value in it? Are they encountering any issues or frustrations? This could involve analyzing usage patterns, tracking key metrics, or conducting user surveys.
And finally, that data fuels the learn stage,
Right.
where you analyze the information you've gathered to determine whether your initial hypothesis was validated or invalidated.
Exactly. And this is where steer really comes into play. If the data supports your hypothesis, you persevere, continuing to refine your product and your approach.
Right.
But if it shows that you're off track, you pivot, adjusting your course based on these real world insights.
Right.
And the beauty of the build, measure, learn loop is that it allows you to continuously adapt and improve based on feedback. It keeps your business agile and responsive to the ever-changing market.
It's like having a built-in navigation system
Right.
to your startup
Yeah.
that's constantly recalculating the route based on the latest information.
That's a great way to put it.
And to illustrate the power of this loop, I
Yeah.
think we can look at the story of Groupon, a company that took a very lean approach to testing their idea.
Absolutely. So they didn't know if people would be interested in daily deals. So they started with an incredibly simple MVP, a WordPress blog,
Yeah.
and they offered these deals through the blog, a far cry from the sophisticated platform they have today, but it allowed them to test their core assumption, the demand for daily deals, before investing heavily in a complex infrastructure.
Amazing to think that they used a simple blog to gauge interest before scaling up.
Yeah, and it worked. The build, measure, learn loop allowed them to validate their idea and then rapidly expand,
Right.
proving that you don't need a perfect product to start getting traction.
It's a testament to the power of this iterative data-driven approach.
Absolutely. You don't need, all the answers up front. You just need a willingness to experiment, measure, learn, and adjust your course along the way.
So before we dive into the next part of Steer, let's distill some of the key takeaways we've uncovered so far.
Okay, yeah. So I think one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of treating your startup as an experiment,
Right.
and not being afraid to test your assumptions early and often.
And those tests should be driven by actionable metrics that give you real, meaningful insights into the health of your business.
Right. And based on those insights, be prepared to make tough decisions.
Right.
Knowing when to pivot or persevere can be one of the most crucial skills for any startup founder to develop.
And remember, the build, measure, learn loop is your compass,
Right.
guiding you through the uncertain waters of startup life.
It's about staying flexible, adapting to new information, and constantly refining your approach based on real world feedback.
Now before we move on, take a moment to reflect on your own business or idea.
Yeah, good idea.
What's the riskiest assumption you're making right now?
Yeah, how could you apply the principles we've discussed to test that assumption quickly and efficiently?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a moment to
Yeah.
continue our exploration of Steer and see how you can build an engine for sustainable growth.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Steer. We've covered a lot of ground, from treating startups as experiments
Yeah.
to using actionable metrics to guide those crucial pivot or persevere decisions.
It's been a fascinating journey so far, and I'm eager to explore what's next. We've talked about validating ideas, but now I'm curious about how you actually build an engine for sustainable growth.
Right.
Is that what Steer focuses on?
Exactly. It's not enough to just prove that your idea has legs. You need to create a system that propels your startup forward,
Right.
allowing it to scale in a way that's both robust and sustainable.
Okay, so where do we begin? What are the key elements of this growth engine?
Well, Ries introduces the concept of the three engines of growth:
Yeah.
the sticky engine, the viral engine, and the paid engine.
Okay.
Think of them as different approaches to acquiring and retaining customers, each with its own strengths and challenges.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's start with the sticky engine.
Okay.
What exactly makes an engine sticky?
Well, imagine creating a product or service that's so engaging, so valuable, so delightful to use that customers can't help but come back for more.
Right.
That's the essence of the sticky engine. It's about building loyalty, reducing churn, and turning those first time users into repeat customers
Yeah.
who stick around for the long haul.
I love that image of a sticky engine. It's like creating a fly trap for customers, but in a good way, of course. They get caught in this web of value and satisfaction,
Right.
and they just can't bring themselves to leave. What are some real world examples of companies that have nailed this sticky engine?
Yeah, well, think about subscription services like Netflix
Right.
or Spotify. They offer a continuous stream of new content, personalized recommendations based on your viewing or listening habits, and a seamless user experience that just makes things easy.
Yeah.
And all of these factors kind of combine to create that stickiness that keeps customers coming back month after month.
It makes perfect sense. They're constantly adding value,
Right.
giving you reasons to stay engaged, and making it hard to imagine life without their service. It's
Yeah.
it's like they've become part of your routine.
Exactly, yeah. Now let's shift gears to the viral engine.
Okay.
This engine is all about harnessing the power of word of mouth marketing. It's about creating a product or service so compelling, so shareable, so buzzworthy that customers can't help but tell their friends about it, igniting organic growth through those personal recommendations.
It's like turning your customers into evangelists,
Yeah, exactly.
spreading the word far and wide without you having to lift a finger.
Right.
And social media has obviously played a huge role in amplifying the reach and impact of the viral engine.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are prime examples of businesses that have mastered the viral engine. Their platforms are designed to encourage sharing, connecting people, and spreading content like wildfire. They've built empires on that virality.
But it's not just about the platforms themselves. It's also about the content that people are sharing, right?
You're spot on. The content that goes viral usually has that special something that makes people want to share it. Maybe it's funny, maybe it's informative, maybe it's emotionally resonant.
Right.
But it has to tap into that inherent human desire to connect with others and to share something that sparks a reaction.
It's about creating something that people feel compelled to talk about, to pass along to their network.
Right.
Now, the third engine, the paid engine, is probably the most familiar to most people.
Right.
This is where traditional advertising and marketing come into play, right?
Yes, and this engine has become even more sophisticated with the rise of digital marketing.
Right.
Companies can now target their ideal customers with incredible precision using data and analytics to optimize their campaigns and maximize their return on investment.
Right. Think of platforms like Google Ads or
Yes.
Facebook ads. You can define your target audience based on demographics, interests, even online behavior,
Right.
and you can track your results in real time, making adjustments as you go.
It's become a science.
It really has.
But even with all of these amazing tools, the paid engine isn't just about throwing money at the problem. You need to be strategic. You need to understand your customer acquisition cost, your CAC, which is how much it costs you to acquire each new customer,
Yeah.
and make sure that you're generating a positive return on your investment, your ROI.
Right. You need to ensure that the lifetime value, the LTV of a customer, the total amount of revenue they'll generate for your business,
Right.
exceeds the cost of acquiring them.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're just burning cash.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that these three engines aren't mutually exclusive.
Right.
Many successful startups use a combination of engines to drive their growth, creating a diversified approach that maximizes their chances of success.
It's like having a diversified investment portfolio.
Right. Exactly.
Spreading your risk and tapping into different sources of growth. But how does a startup figure out which engine or combination of engines is the right fit for them?
Right.
It's not a one size fits all approach, is it?
No, not at all. The key is to deeply understand your target market.
Right.
Your product or service and your overall business model.
Yeah.
Each startup needs to find the engine or combination of engines that aligns with their specific circumstances.
So if you're selling a niche product to a very, very specific audience,
Yeah.
you might find the viral engine challenging to leverage.
Right.
But you could excel with a sticky engine that focuses on building a loyal and engaged customer base within that niche.
Precisely. On the other hand, a social media platform might find the viral engine to be their primary driver of growth,
Right.
with the paid engine playing a supporting role to expand their reach even further.
And for a company selling a commodity product in a highly competitive market, the paid engine might be their best bet,
Right.
allowing them to reach a broad audience and compete effectively on price.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about finding the right tool for the job. Now Ries emphasizes that startups need to be careful not to get stuck in one engine for too long.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Well, I think as a startup grows and evolves, its ideal engine of growth might also need to evolve. The market changes, customer behavior shifts,
Right.
new opportunities emerge.
Yeah.
And what worked in the early days might not be as effective down the road.
Yeah.
So a company that initially relied heavily on the viral engine
Yeah.
might need to shift their focus to the paid engine as the market becomes more saturated and organic reach becomes more difficult to achieve.
Or they might need to invest more heavily in building a robust sticky engine
Right.
to retain their existing customer base and reduce churn as competition increases.
Exact.
It's all about being adaptable, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to be able to read the signals, recognize when it's time to switch gears and
Right.
adapt your growth strategy to the ever-changing dynamics of the market. And that brings us to another important concept in steer. The growth hypothesis.
A hypothesis, like in a science experiment.
Exactly, yeah. So a growth hypothesis is essentially an educated guess about how your startup will grow.
Okay.
It's a statement that you can test
Right.
using data to validate or invalidate it.
So instead of just crossing your fingers and hoping for growth, you're taking a more scientific approach,
Right.
formulating a clear hypothesis about how you'll achieve that growth, and then putting it to the test.
Precisely, yeah. And a growth hypothesis might focus on a specific engine of growth. For instance, you might say, we believe that we can achieve 20% month-over-month growth by implementing a referral program that incentivizes our existing customers to share our product with their friends.
So you're stating your belief about how you'll grow, and then you're using data to track your progress and see if your hypothesis is holding true.
Right. And if the data shows that your hypothesis isn't panning out,
Yeah.
then you need to revise it, adjust your approach, or maybe even pivot to a different engine of growth.
It's an iterative process of testing and refining, constantly learning from your experiments and adapting your strategy based on what the data reveals.
Exactly, yeah. And this iterative approach is essential for sustainable growth.
Yeah.
It's about being beta driven, making informed decisions, and constantly adjusting your course based on real world feedback.
Now Ries also emphasizes the importance of optimizing for the long term.
Right.
It's not just about chasing quick wins or short-term games.
Right.
It's about building a building a business that can thrive over the long haul.
Right. That's such a crucial point, especially in today's business landscape where things are constantly changing at such a rapid pace.
It's tempting to get caught up in those short-term tactics that promise immediate results,
Yeah.
but they often come at the expense of long-term uh, sustainability.
It's like building a house of cards, you know?
Right.
It might look impressive for a moment, but it's not built to last.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to build a business that's more like a sturdy oak tree than a house of cards?
Yeah.
How do you optimize for the long term?
Well, I think it starts with building a strong foundation.
Yeah.
That means creating a product or service that genuinely solves a problem for your customers.
Right.
Building a team of talented and passionate people who are committed to your vision and establishing a culture of innovation and continuous improvement.
It's about creating a business that's built to last, not just to make a quick buck.
Exactly, yeah. And it also means being mindful of your impact on the world. Sustainable growth isn't just about financial success.
Yeah.
It's about creating a business that's ethical, responsible, and contributes to the greater good.
And this idea of building a business with purpose is gaining momentum, and it's inspiring to see more and more startups embracing this
Right.
blossom.
It's about creating a business that you can be proud of.
Yeah.
A business that makes a positive difference in the world.
That's a powerful vision. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Steer, we've explored the three engines of growth, Right. and the importance of optimizing for the long term, building a business that's not only profitable but also purposeful.
We've learned how startups can use data to formulate growth hypotheses, track their progress, and make informed decisions about their path forward.
And I think it's clear that building a successful startup isn't just about luck or intuition.
Right.
It's about applying a scientific, data-driven approach to navigate the unpredictable journey of entrepreneurship.
Before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to consider these
Yeah.
questions. What engine of growth is your business currently relying on?
Right. Is it the right engine for your current stage of development?
Yeah, and are you optimizing for the long term, building a business that's both profitable and purposeful?
These are important questions to ponder as you continue your startup journey.
Yeah.
We'll be back shortly to wrap up our exploration of Steer and leave you with some final thoughts and takeaways. Welcome back to our deep dive into Steer.
Mm.
We've been exploring how startups can use data as their compass, making those critical decisions to pivot or persevere,
Mm.
and figuring out which engine of growth will best propel them forward. But it feels like there's one more layer to uncover. Is that where adaptive management comes in?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Adaptive management is where Ries brings in ideas from other fields, particularly environmental science. He makes this compelling case that startups, much like complex ecosystems, need to be managed in a way that embraces uncertainty and change.
So it's less about having this rigid top-down plan and more about being flexible, responsive, and ready to adjust as you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Adaptive management is all about about learning by doing,
Right.
recognizing that you won't have all the answers at the outset.
Right. Yeah.
It's about making decisions based on the best available information, gathering more and more data as you go,
Yeah.
and then making course corrections based on what you learn.
It it sounds a lot like the build, measure, learn loop, but on a broader scale.
That's a great observation. The build, measure, learn loop is essentially a microcosm of adaptive management.
Right.
It's that constant cycle of iterating, testing, and refining your approach, but
Yeah.
applied to the entire startup journey.
And Ries seems to emphasize that this approach is particularly crucial in today's fast-paced business world.
Oh, absolutely.
Things change so quickly
Yeah.
that what worked yesterday might be obsolete tomorrow.
Startups need to be agile, adaptable, and constantly learning to stay ahead of the curve.
Right.
They need to be able to pivot quickly when necessary, but also to stay focused on their long term vision.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's like navigating a ship through uncharted waters.
Right.
You need a map to guide you, but you also need to be prepared to adjust your course based on the winds and the currents.
That's a fantastic analogy, and it brings us to the critical role of leadership in this whole equation. Rizzi argues that startup leaders need to be both visionary and pragmatic. They need to inspire their team with a compelling vision of the future, but they also need to be willing to make tough data-driven decisions based on the realities of the present.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between ambition and realism.
Yeah.
Dreaming big while staying grounded in the data.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also about fostering um a culture of learning within the startup.
Right.
Everyone needs to be comfortable with experimentation, failure and continuous improvement.
Right.
Mistakes are inevitable, but they become valuable learning opportunities when you have a culture that embraces them.
It's about recognizing that the journey of a startup is rarely a straight line. Right.
Yeah.
It's full of twists, turns, and unexpected obstacles.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into steer.
Yeah.
We've explored a lot of concept, from the importance of testing assumptions
Right.
to the power of choosing the right growth engine, from the
Yeah.
need for actionable metrics to the value of embracing adaptive management.
But I think that the most valuable takeaway, the one that really sticks with me, is that building a successful startup isn't about having all the answers up front.
Right.
It's about having the humility to admit what you don't know, the curiosity to keep learning, and the courage to adapt and iterate as you go.
I couldn't agree more. It's about embracing the uncertainty, the challenges, and the incredible rewards that come with creating something new, something valuable, something that has the potential to change the world.
So as you continue your own entrepreneurial journey,
Yeah.
remember that you have the power to steer your startup towards success.
Use the tools and principles we've discussed to navigate the unpredictable terrain, to make data-driven decisions, and to create a business that's both innovative and sustainable.
And above all, never stop learning,
Oh.
never stop iterating, and never stop pursuing your dreams.
Mm.
That's the essence of the lean startup and the spirit of entrepreneurship.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into steer.
Yeah.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights that you can apply to your own ventures.
Until next time,
Yeah.
keep steering your startup towards success.